Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Duke Oishi.
In our show today, we'll cover the UH research ship Ka'imikai o Kanaloa and the two submersibles, Picses IV and V, that it carries at Sand Island.
We'll do a walk-around tour and climb down into Picses V. We'll see the pictures it takes on the bottom, and we'll look at the laboratories and talk to the scientific director and pilots to see what it means to science.
First, we took a walk-around tour around the Picses V with its operations director and pilot, Terry Kirby. Here's a part of that tour.
This ship is the Ka'imikai o Kanaloa. That's our dedicated support ship for the Picses IV and Picses V submersibles. And the submersibles are part of NOAA's National Sea Research Program through the University of Hawaii.
So NOAA's your funding agency?
Exactly,
principally.
yes.
And you are the operations officer and pilot of the submersible?
Yeah, operations director and chief pilot.
Okay, what an exciting life, what an exciting career. What are your credentials so that everybody can do the same thing as you?
Well, the submersibles, there's not very many in the world, and each operation is completely different. My background was and I was in the Coast Guard. I was a navigator, and I had a background in ships, and then in diving, as commercial diving, and just a wide range. So we have a very small crew, and everybody has their unique specialties to contribute to the operation. There's only 5 of us that actually operate and maintain the 2 submersibles.
Semper paratus, you can always tell a Coast Guard. Okay, anyway, so let's talk about this submersible. This is really important. This is one of how many in the world?
Well, right now, the main deep diving research submersibles, there's only 7 in the world right now. There's lots of different manned submersibles used for tourism and privately owned ones. But the deep diving research submersibles in the world that have a part of government programs, there's only 7.
Where are the other ones?
You
have 2.
We have 2. We have the Picses V and the Picses IV.
And they're the same class of ship?
Same class. They were built by the same company in the early 70s. And the Japanese Shinkai is another one. And then the Russians have the Mir 1 and the Mir 2. And then the French have the Nautil, and then there's the Alvin out of Woods Hole, and then the Picses IV and V here with the University of Hawaii.
And you're familiar with all these because you get to talk to the other guys who operate them and compare notes and go to conferences and visit and so forth.
We used to do that every few years. That small group, a gathering of subhumans, so to speak, would all gather and start discussing. And we discuss, the different operations and share ideas. And
sure, helpful. So, how come they're all so old?
Well, the real heyday of manned submersibles was in the late 60s, early 70s, and there were a lot of them built then, which most of them are rotting away in yards around the world. But there are just a few operating. I guess there was a lot of interest at the time and a lot of hope that this would be like a new space program, that the government would be supporting these programs. That never happened. So the big industrials like Reynolds Aluminum and Westinghouse actually built submersibles. They didn't go anywhere. So there were just a few that were used in the oil industry that survived. And these two Picses subs were the last 2 operating out of 10 that were built in the 70s.
And the Picses, not all the ones you mentioned are Picses, but the Picses were all deployed in American universities and agencies?
No, the Picses subs they were built by a company called International Hydrodynamics in Canada, and they built 10 Picses class subs, but only the Picses 4, 5, 6, 7, and 11 could go to 6,600 feet. The others were 3,300. Then they built a big lockout sub called the Taurus. They built a sub called the Leo. They built 2 subs called the Aquarius, of which one of them was used on the movie The Abyss.
Oh, no kidding.
And so that was with just this one company, and the Navy was actually behind the development of the Alvin and the Seacliff and the Turtle. The Seacliff and the Turtle are no longer in existence anymore. So
they were 3,000-foot models.
They were a lot deeper than that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The Turtle could actually go to 20. The Seacliff could go to 20,000 feet.
That's
Alvin's,
deeper than Picses.
Yeah.
Over
The
here.
Alvin's operating depth is 14,000 feet. And the Russian Mirs and the Shinkai and the Nautil all go around 20,000 feet.
You're talking about this as if there was no classified information at all. Am I right? Is any of this classified?
Not
or
really.
Just all old?
It's just old, yeah. Yeah, so there haven't really been any new ones built in a long time. The two Russian Mir subs were built in the late 80s, but the Chinese are now developing one. Probably the latest and newest one is being built by China. They're
So they
hoping to
treat it
join
as
the
classified.
game. Yeah.
So what about unmanned submersibles like Sung Choi is doing at the School of Engineering?
Well, we have an unmanned. We have a remote vehicle, the RCV 150, and that we operate as well.
There was more to that tour, and if you want to see the rest, tune in to thinktechhawaii.com.
After the walk around, we climbed down into the Picses V, and here's what we saw down below.
So that soft line is in the handling system right there. So that line picks it up, and there's two big latches that lock under these plates, so hydraulic latches. To climb in the sub, we take off our shoes Hawaii style, and there's a couple of ladders here that go in the back, and we just climb in. Lower yourself down to these steps, and then grab a couple of handles here, and then just step right off on the seat. People get in here and they go, wow, this is tiny, but the sub I started with was the Star 2. That was a 5-foot diameter Commancer. This is 7.
Wow. And
So
then
if you ever, 2 people.
okay.
So if you ever go to the Maui Ocean Center, and you're going through their deep ocean display, and you'll come around the corner and there's a little submersible sitting there that looks like a toy. It's not, that's it. That's the old
That's
Star
a
2.
real sub.
That's what I started. That sub was built by General Dynamics Electric Boat Division in 1966. And that came here to Hawaii when the Mackay Range first started.
Okay.
And then Maui Divers took the lease over for that, and that little sub launched this program in 1980. So that was our main research submersible, and it got reconfigured and renamed the Makali'i.
So these are the scrubber crystals.
Right, so these pre-packs sit back here, and there's our scrubber right here. So we just take a couple of them, and we strip the plastic off and put them together and put some tape, and they fit right in there. And then there's a blower here and there, and that scrubs the CO2 out of the atmosphere. And this up here is a CO2 monitor, so we'll be monitoring CO2 level from there. We have 2 oxygen sensors here, so the pilot is monitoring the oxygen level there. And then our 2 video monitors. So this is what both the cameras are seeing right there, so we can monitor that. And these are the controls where we can zoom in and out or pan the camera right and left. And this is the sub phone, so this is our underwater communications. So to talk to the surface, we just push this button, and we can talk through water to the surface, so there's no cable connection there. This is our high-tech timer, and we'll set that for 30 minutes, and that will go off in the pilot's ear every 30 minutes to remind him to call the surface. So we call up on the hour and a half hour. And the pilot's position, the pilot is here, he's on his knees like this, and we're leaning over a chest pad like that, with the forehead up, his forehead pad like that. So that's how we control the sub from up here. And there's an indicator right outside here that's a mechanical indicator that shows you the position of the thrusters. So we can tilt the thrusters with this little switch here, so we can tilt them back or down. This little switch right here moves our trim weight fore and aft, so we can trim the sub. And these are to control the propulsion. So that's a port thruster and a starboard thruster, so they're variable speed, so we can move up on something and go dead slow, or we can speed up with both of them, and we can control how the thrusters are adjusted from the switch here. And then we have a little display right here that shows our compass heading, and it shows our depth, and it shows our altitude off the bottom. And this right here is a control for our one manipulator. So the one you saw on the side here, the really dexterous high-tech one. So once we program that and set it up with our computer here, and that's ready to go, then as soon as we push this little button on the end, it's active. So every little nuance of movement you make is reflected in that arm. And if you rotate this, it rotates the wrist, and if you push this little button, the jaw is open. If you push that little ring, the jaw is closed. And so that's how we control that manipulator. Then the other one is right here, so the pilot can be here like this sometimes with the sub fixed setting on the bottom and controlling this manipulator to move it out, or left or right, or jaws open, jaw closed, and this one to like pick something up, bring it over, take this one, grab it, put it in a box, close the box lid, so we can use these two arms to do our sampling. So a 7-foot diameter sphere, crowded full of instruments, so it's kind of like being inside a Swiss watch. So you have all the instruments and you have 3 people in here. So you have one observer is laying here, looking at the side, the observer is on this side, and the pilot is in the center. So it seems pretty tiny right now, but as soon as you close that hatch and you get into a dive, it actually seems to grow.
Here are some pictures that these submersibles routinely take at the bottom of the ocean. They're nothing like you've ever seen before.
Then we took a look at some of the laboratories on the Ka'imi Kai o Kanaloa with its research director, John Smith. Okay, we're here in the, what is it, the chemistry lab?
Yeah, they call it the wet lab, or this is typically where the chemists and the biologists would set up their equipment and their samples they would bring on after the sub. So we have about 4 different types of labs on the ship in the middle part, and this is the one where you might set up your chemical analyzers or your when you need to subsample your coral specimens or your fish specimens and preserve them. So they bring in here, we have regular water, flowing seawater, acid-proof counters, drying racks for bottles of flasks, and we have special filtered water. And then over here we have a semi-clean room with a fume hood for any kind of nasty fumed chemicals. And so this is one of the basically working labs. When you have a full group of scientists, there's kind of a trade-off between working area and storage area. So this is pretty much filled up with action packer boxes and shipping containers, and they're tied up against the side. We have a couple freezers and a refrigerator for science. And in the other lab, we also have an ultra-cold freezer, which is a minus 80 degrees centigrade freezer that is used to flash freeze samples, and they use that mostly when they want to do genetic work later on. So you need really super cold for that. So this is a electronics lab where there's a shipboard technician that basically maintains all the scientific gear and the communications with internet. And we have an email system that's somewhat limited but useful. And so this is kind of where all the networking is, the hub for this. We also have a closed circuit TV system on board, so there's cameras all over the ship for say that the captain can monitor what's going on. You can actually run the remotely operated vehicle video throughout the ship. You can watch it in the galley, you can watch it at the control station, you can watch it in your cabin if you want. And so we have wireless internet too through the ship, so you can set up a laptop. But in here is where they'd work on scientific equipment that's going in or just came out of the water that needs to be kept clean. Usually we'll have a bunch of test gear set up, anything that's needed, and
These
spare
are
parts.
electronic instruments.
Yeah, That's about
Which
it.
you use plenty when you go down there, I guess. Okay, what's next?
This is the C-beam lab, which is a sonar system that is used to map the seafloor. Basically, it creates topographic maps, the elevations, the sea mountains, the ridges, the valleys, and this is using a technology called multi-beam sonar. It's a swath mapping technology. It's kind of like mowing the lawn, where you go back and forth, covering the seafloor with sound waves. It's very high resolution, and we can map actually at the full ocean depth with the system. And what we do, the way we use it on this ship primarily is as a site survey tool for the submersibles. So we'll go out, if we don't already have good data for the area, we'll map it in detail, say the night before, create a map, process the data, and make digital versions and hard copy versions. We can plot them out on the plotter and give those to the submarine in the tracking room, and then off they go.
After that, we sat down for a while in the scientists' conference room on the ship with John Smith, Terry Kirby, and Max Cremer to compare notes on what these submersibles mean to science.
Where is this all going? What do you see in the future for the submersible, program, project, this equipment?
Well, we've been doing a lot, and the bulk of our science dives are typically biological oriented, whether they're fisheries or deep sea corals, things like that. And by far the largest percentage is that. And then smaller percentages are, say, geology dives, geochemistry, hydrothermal studies of hotspot volcanoes in various places. Then there's some engineering or site survey dives, like for the power cable, for any kind of like pipe surveys for any LHA. But those are usually only a few dives, even though those are fairly consistent over time. And then one thing that's kind of growing is more of these engineering site survey dives, like I mentioned. And these are involved, like the power cable, the Hawaii seawater cable, Hawaii seawater AC.
Future, and I think when these were initially developed, they were developed mainly for the oil industry, and as that has become more and more the domain of remote vehicles, and it's because it's cost-driven, remote vehicles, these have been more adapted, and they've basically become less of a population, more adapted to detailed deep ocean exploration and science work. And another area where we're doing more is than we did initially when we started is in marine archaeology. So we've actually made a lot of significant discoveries, and that has generated dives with national marine sanctuaries and the Park Service and film documentary dives. So that's become another area where we make discoveries, and then there's usually a lot of follow-up dives. We discovered the wreckage of, for example, the Marshall Mars, which is a giant seaplane, and some other really older aircraft, and that generated days of survey work with the Park Service and National Marine Sanctuaries. So these, the Maritime Archaeological Heritage Program definitely has a place for this. They've always dealt in really shallow wreck sites, but we've actually opened up a whole other avenue of getting to deeper historical wreck sites.
The lesson is that science and, call it the inquiring mind, the public inquiring mind moves ahead, and you become more and more important to them. That's what's happening. And I suggest that there'll be actually another generation of manned submersibles, and they'll put. I suggest they'll put money in, big money. It's
Well,
coming.
we're hanging in on that one for biofuel.
Yeah, I'll put that in writing if you like. Biofuel, of course.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to do this green. So last word for you, Max. Wrap it around for us. Tell us what the truth is.
Well, the two of them have pretty much cleared the field in all the current developments. But there's a really one thing that I'd like to reiterate is that over the decades now, I'm in the field for about 25 years, starting with as a student in earth sciences. It's going from the mining over the biology, now more into the anthropogenic input and impact, legacy issues, maritime histories, pollution, ammunition, the nooses we laid around our own neck now that we're starting to venture into the maritime environment. The other issue that I sometimes bring up is when we talk about manned submersibles versus ROV, I personally think it's important to try and maintain just the know-how and the capability of human presence in extreme environments. I mean, what good will it do us when, in the end, we have a load of robots on Mars or on the ocean floor waving to us, thanks for building us, and now go away, we got it. You know?
As one final thought, we asked him about the background of the Ka'imi Kai o Kanaloa itself, and were interested to find that it had been a ship with a rusted past rescued from an Alabama bayou.
This is a picture of the Western Strait. So in the mid-'80s, we started looking for a support vessel, and we went all over the Gulf of Mexico, looked at a lot of ships rusting away in bayous, and this one we found in a bayou in Alabama, and it had partially sunk before, and it was rusty, and it was in pretty bad shape. But it had the type of engine clamp we wanted, and we got the ship and went into a shipyard. It was totally redesigned, and we cut it in half, added a 40-foot midsection, stretched it to 223 feet, and we raised the back deck. It had like a 3-foot freeboard, which meant big waves would have been coming in. We raised that to 7 feet, which gave us a much better sea state condition to operate in. Totally redid the bridge and all the living quarters and the rest of the ship. So this is the end result, and you're sitting on it right now. It's a great ship, for a support ship for these subs, but it came from sad beginnings. We saved it. We're trying to save it again.
You know, Duke, these two, the Picses IV and V at Sand Island, it's called Snug Harbor there, believe it or not. These are two of only 7 submersibles of this class in the world.
Really?
And manned submersibles, really, there aren't a lot being made lately. These were made like 30 years ago. And the question ultimately is, well, should we keep on supporting these manned submersibles, or should we just go to unmanned submersibles? There are things with these manned submersibles that you can do that you cannot do with the unmanned submersibles. And one of those things was tracking the undersea cable, which was done by the University for DBED just a few months ago.
Right, and that's a cable that will connect Oahu and Molokai and Lanai?
Yep, and it's really an important cable, and it was good the university did it. One of these days we should go down there and see what's at the bottom of things. And if we take a trip, we should take the camera.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Certainly an enlightening visit. If you want to see the rest of our walk around the Picses V, check out ThinkTechHawaii.com. I'm sure you'll find it worthwhile.
And now that we're in a new year, there's a new calendar of events. Let's take a look at what ThinkTech will be doing over the next few months.
On January 27th, we'll be working with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association to present the Deal of the Year Awards lunch at the Plaza Club. See HVCA.org.
On February 24th, we'll present a luncheon program called How Hawaii Can Take Advantage of the Opportunities Presented by the APEC Summit.
On March 23rd, we'll present a half-day program called Housing in Hawaii, dealing with the problems we have in providing adequate housing for our people.
On April 28th, we'll present a luncheon program called Reciprocal Investments Between Hawaii and China, featuring a panel to discuss how Hawaii investors can invest in China, and a second panel to discuss how Hawaii companies can attract investments from China.
And now, here's Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, with this week's Spensation.
Well, tonight, Jay, we're going to talk about our New Year event, which we always hold in January, the Hawaii Venture Capital Association Venture Capital Deal of the Year. And this is when we honor the entrepreneurs who've been able to raise significant funding. And this year was a tough one, let me tell you. Wasn't a lot of money out there. It was even worse than last year, I think. Not that much money going into venture capital firms. A really hard year to find funding. So the guys that win this year really deserve the recognition.
So who's the speaker for this program on January 27th?
That's right, January 27th, the fourth Thursday of the month. We're so happy to have John Dean, who's the chairman of Central Pacific Bank. He's been going through quite the fundraising himself to turn Central Pacific around, and I know he's going to tell us a little bit about that. You also know he's the head of Startup Venture Capital and the Entrepreneurship Foundation. So great contributor to our community and a real hero as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, and who are the winners? Who are getting the awards, Bill? You can tell me. Nobody's listening.
If I did that, Jay, it just wouldn't be a surprise, now would it? But you'll know soon enough.
I'll be there, Bill, for
All
sure.
right.
Me and a couple of hundred other people, we're interested. We want to know. This is the first of a number of programs that HVCA is going to put on in the next few months. I'm looking forward to all of them.
And several in conjunction with ThinkTech Hawaii.
Absolutely,
We're
absolutely.
going to have a great year this year.
Yes, we are, Bill. Happy New Year, Bill.
Happy New Year to you.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech, but first we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation. Jay Scheidler, through the Scheidler Family Foundation, is an active supporter of a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech Hawaii.
Hawaiian Electric Company, HECO and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to supporting the communities they serve.
Galen Ho. Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company which has a large presence in and commitment to Hawaii.
The High Tech Development Corporation, HTDC, is a state agency dedicated to developing Hawaii's high-tech industry, diversifying our economy, and providing quality jobs for our people.
Okay, Duke, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week, just like Duke does. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
And for lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks for joining us on ThinkTech.
And I'm Duke Oishi. Aloha, everyone.